Try This at Home is an AxFi Entertainment Group production, filmed on the mall in Kalamazoo, Michigan, at Public Media Network Studios in the Epic Center.
I woke up this morning, I could feel it was on the summit. The sunshine is golden red, a bluebird, blue sky. Lord, hoping it's right on time. You wait for me. Oh yeah, I can feel it alright. I can feel it alright. This ain't no back home. 56K internet and core Wi-Fi. It's the same old tune from long, long ago. So go try this at home. Try this at home. Try this at home. Try this at home.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Try This at Home podcast. I'm here again today.
I'm so mad.
Try this at home. Ba, ba, ba. And you know what? We should talk about that in a minute. But I am back here again today. I'm Michael Queen. I am joined by my fellow co-hosts and executive producers, Damien Faust and Trevor Penn.
Hola.
Today, we are going to be talking about soundboards. But before doing that, let's talk about the intro.
Yeah. Oh, we got it done.
We finally got it
Warms
done.
my heart to
Yeah.
bring you guys the cheesiest cheese that I'm
it's
pretty
Gouda.
sure I have ever participated in. For me
Right.
personally, I'm so excited. We're just rolling in nacho liquid cheese over here. We created an intro that we know you will never be able to forget, and you probably will never let us forget. So we're excited about that.
I mean, it was fun recording that intro, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like,
All right, I just want to say this. So, because I find it funny, it's not that we don't like this project, but it's the only metaphor I know. I watched Darius Rucker, Hootie and the Blowfish. I watched an
I
interview,
love
right?
Darius
And he's
Rucker.
and the guy asked him a question, something about like, if he had any words of advice for aspiring musicians, whatever, what would you tell him to do? And he was like, I'll tell you what, don't ever write a song you don't like. Because that's going to be the one song you're singing for the rest of your career. Which is hilarious.
anybody knows that, it's
because
him.
his most iconic song, right? Let Her Cry. I would have never known had I not seen an interview. He hates that song. He wrote it trying to be intentionally corny, thinking the record label would say, no way the song is going to make it.
And it's like his
We're
biggest
cutting
hit.
it. And it's his biggest hit. But in that same manner, it's like, how many times have we been in the studio? We're trying. I mean, you're putting in the effort. Like, I'm not being cool about this. I'm trying to write a great
Right.
part.
Yeah.
And it's taking everything to come together.
yeah.
And we sat down in the studio for this thing, and it was just like, all right, guys, we got to get it happen. We're already running behind, and Damien just puts on an instrument. I was like, all right, look, run it. First take, here goes the bass line. Next take, here goes the guitar. All right, here goes, and just every corny piece of this cheese came together with such ease.
did.
I don't know what that says about us, or if
Right.
if it's a masterful thing, or if we got that much cheese inside. One of the two.
So the idea behind it, by the way, is when we were trying to pitch what we're going to do for the intro, Trevor came up with the idea of doing a cheesy 90s intro, but we also
Blame it on
decided
me,
to do
sure.
many different types of
He's not
intros.
wrong. It was my idea.
So,
man.
so we're going to be running with that one for quite a while. We've had kind of like a placeholder version in the first couple episodes you've seen so far, but we didn't have the actual song that we wrote and recorded for it until this episode here. We're going to, like I said, we're going to run it for a little while, and then we're going to do some other ones. So if anybody has any ideas, feel free to let us know. Yeah, write in. Let
What's
us
your
know.
favorite 90s sitcom that you like? Ooh, what if they
90s
had an
sitcom doesn't
intro?
matter. 80s sitcom, 70s,
Right,
whatever.
right,
We're going to do some Dick Wolf style intro
Yeah.
at some point.
That's what we should do next.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
And to get in touch with us, the best way to do that is to hit us up on email at contactus, one word, at axfigroup.com.
Yes, sir.
I'm
so glad you knew where to put this go.
axfigroup.com.
Yeah.
Man,
And also, let's introduce our vision switcher today, and he's our own very good friend, Sean Ahmed. Is it Ahmed or Ahmed? I've actually wanted to have a conversation with you about this for a while,
Ahmed.
Sean, because I've known this
Ahmed.
kid for almost a decade, and I heard you pronounce it for Campos in class one time, and you kind of gave it like the hard Ahmed sort of sound, but everybody else just says Ahmed. So he can't speak to us right now, but tell me later on. And if I have been getting it wrong for these 8 years I've known you, then
on behalf
it's
of
your
Michael
fault.
Queen right
It's
now,
entirely your
everybody,
fault.
I apologize to everybody viewing at home for him asking a question that none of you will be able to hear the answer to, but you're now all curious.
Well, it doesn't matter. You don't get to know anyway. In any case, he's a very good friend of ours. He's also a client of AxFi Entertainment Group. We're working on an album with him right now. And Lucian could not make it today, so Sean came in and learned how to do video switching just to be our video switcher today. So thanks, Sean.
Top-notch quality people, right, are learners. They can learn things on the fly and be like, let's do this.
Yeah. But, back on that intro, it was basically just like, oh, we need to write this song. And I guess what it speaks to is, we understood the assignment.
Oh, man.
I listened to that a couple of different 90s theme songs, and I was like, all right, I think I got something about it.
Yeah.
I think everybody understood the assignment. That's the debate. I think it's borderlines we understood it too well.
Man,
How do we understand
because
it?
I honestly think we should make a full version of that and release it because I think it's a banger. Sorry, that's just me.
He is the only one. Do not expect any full versions or commercial releases.
It's I remember doing all of that, and we should run with it. But I think it's just kind of funny as an artist right now. Two of the things that I just released, one of them I have no memory of recording, and then the other is this goofy thing that I put together, with you guys. And the last thing that just released was also kind of a goofy thing. We covered the Heart in a Blender song by Ep4 in my band Amaranth.
Tell that story. I think that's that's a great story to help out, up and coming musicians. Like, this is really how things happen, right? More than not. So
my band Amaranth consists right now of me, my friend Ken Magerman, and my other friend Colin Skipper. We do a lot with automated backing tracks, and we're about to release a new album called Gothmist. We just all agreed that it's done last night. So that's coming out soon.
Nice.
But in the the album's been recorded and done for a while. In the meantime, Max Collins of Ep4 got a bit of Twitter fame. If you don't know who that is, they wrote that. The song is called Inside Out, and it's the Tender Heart in a Blender song is how everybody knows it.
I'd start singing it, but I don't want to get flagged.
In a blender. Right. I don't want to get flagged. Good point. Yeah. He blew up on Twitter, and Ken loved it and was just started following him and was on a mission. Just you know what? I'm going to get this guy's attention and get him to talk to me about it. And he took it so far as to not just tweeting him all of the time, that he decided that our band was going to record a goth version of that song, an industrial dance version. And we did it, and we recorded it, and we had it released and mastered, and decided that it's not our song. We didn't write it. So to make it easy for the intellectual property back end of it, we're going to put it up as a charity fundraiser for, the folks struggling in Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
So all the money, I think we raised almost I think the last I heard it was around $1,500 to $2,000 is about how much we raised to send it out there. I heard that we had 1,400 individual downloads of it.
Heck yeah.
One of those was Max Collins of Ep4. So as we released
bing, 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 bing. That's the note.
Yeah.
Just tweets out to Max Collins hey, we did this goth fundraiser thing, and then Max Collins heard it, and he's like, oh my God, someone did a goth version of the Heart in a Blender song, and they're using it to raise money for Ukraine. How great is this? And
I saw that.
And now we're in a dialogue with Max Collins, actually, about it.
Say it again for the people in the back.
He loves it. By the way, he thinks it's great. A lot of Ep4 fans, they don't.
Well, that's because they're Ep4 fans. Sorry, Max.
Max actually, he's got from what I've seen, a pretty
Look,
great
if they were
personality
fans of Ep4, and not saying that they're a great band, don't get me wrong, but if they're fans of Ep4, they're typically not going to be fans of goth metal style.
Right.
Sort of thing.
Ep4 was a very 90s I feel like they kind of had a modern Renaissance sort of sound to that alternative.
Oh, I loved
era.
them. I remember banging that back in the day.
Yeah, but
that was a summer anthem. I don't remember which summer.
Very famously, just a one-hit wonder. But we did that song as a joke, and I remember screaming the end of the song with everybody, the rendezvous part. I remember going into the studio and recording that. But the guitar on the track, which I'm told is all me, I have no memory of recording. I don't remember recording
great.
any of it. I think it was just one of those days that we were in the studio and they were like, hey, you're here. Why don't you just do this for us really quickly? And I was like, all right.
Oh.
And then I probably did it. And it was done in very few takes. And I
Moved on to the
I
next.
moved on to, well, we just moved on to hanging
Professionals
out.
need few takes.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I need quite a few, but like that's usually in the writing process, right? And that song's like a 3-chord pop song.
Yeah.
So
And it's one we've known for decades now.
as we were practicing for our project, It Will All Hurt, my phone just kept blowing up, and I was like, "This is not a good time. Why is my phone blowing up?"
Yeah.
But
And it's
it becomes
that.
a good time when that is the
Yeah.
what's brewing in the pot. But
I just love that I don't remember it.
well, then we're gonna
So-
move on there.
Well,
Yeah.
if you want to hear it, feel free to search online. I'm sure you can find it. Do you know what? Like
it is called Thieve 6, and that is THIEVE, the numeral 6.bandcamp.com is where that's available.
Yeah, it's quite
And
a banger too.
I think it's just donations only. Any money that comes to that after Bandcamp takes their cut, we're sending it directly to folks in the Ukraine. Our bassist Colin, his partner was actually working in the Peace Corps at the start of the pandemic.
I remember
and
that.
was located in Ukraine.
She got stuck there for a long
is that
time.
The actual
Couldn't
nonprofit
come
partner?
home.
Is it Peace Corps? Is
No,
who's
it's not
handling
Peace
the-
Corps. I don't know the name of the actual nonprofit, but Maya picked it out because she was able to see which ones are actually getting through to folks there, and she still has
Yeah.
friends in Ukraine that I mean, the last time I checked, they were still in contact with them, and that was a charity that they recommended that we send things through. But yeah, she had, like at the beginning of the pandemic, had several, like almost a month to 6 week process of coming from the Ukraine back to the United States.
I remember hearing about that. I remember like she was pretty much already about to come home, then the quarantine started, and she couldn't leave the country for a while, something like that, right?
No, I don't think that she was planning on leaving. I don't remember specifically, but just I remember that COVID hit, and all of a sudden it was like people are being brought back to where they're at, and there was always like a 14-day waiting period
gotcha.
of things, not only like from each government. I think that
I'm about to say,
there was
a lot of
layover
countries.
at-
If you were trying to travel international, some had a 14-day at the border. Some you weren't even being allowed in. I mean, there's a lot of the smaller island nations, like even our Caribbean, are just starting to open back up from the original 2019, beginning of 2020 lockdown.
So there's a musician that's been on an EP that I was a part of with the Mushmen. It was our This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things EP, named Dan Pottis. He's in a band called MU330, and right now he's also in a band. And Jeff, the artist's name is Jeff Rosenstock. He's signed to a bigger label, and he played Pitchfork a few years ago, and that went over well for him. But Jeff just went on a world tour with the Dan Pottis, and the producer of those albums, Rick Johnson, is usually their live sound person.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, basically Jeff just put out a long post on Instagram that said how much of a struggle getting through the tour was because of people being exposed to COVID, still testing positive for COVID, and not being able to get into that country or be able to play the venue that date. The bands that they were touring with oftentimes had to learn their songs with no practice to fill out the performance. And like by the end of it, it was just Jeff and one of the original members playing by the time they'd finished the whole tour.
Holy smokes.
Because things are still so
rough.
complicated for musicians right now.
Something to
traveling
think about,
internationally.
right? If you really are thinking about doing tours or touring or beginning to try to branch out to that part of your artistry,
Get ready
career,
to have roadblocks.
we're in a fun
in your
spot
way.
of
Well,
navigating in that.
Well, if you
regard.
remember
There's a
right,
lot
that's
of
the whole reason why AxFi Entertainment Group got into more, podcasts. Because it's one of the reasons why we're kind of here in the first place. Because a little backstory on AxFi Entertainment Group. It's an entertainment group started by Trevor right here. He conscripted me early on. And in 2019, we started to do a lot of live events, and we really started to hit our stride on that. 2020 was going to be our year. Like, we had secured a multi-million-dollar venue. We were going to start bringing in all kinds of stuff. And March happened. March 2020 happened, and that shut down that whole thing. So we had to find something else to do with our time, and here we are.
Creatives were like, you can't just shut off the creative venue.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll affect your health literally.
Yeah.
So you gotta.
It's been interesting to talk to all of my friends who are artists and working in different acts that I'm not a part of, and the people I'm collaborating with, of finding different ways to make sure this stays a part of our lives.
Right.
And they just goes to show you the work ethic of creative people. It's like, there are all these barriers. Like, you know what? I bet I can figure out how to do this stuff.
There is nothing more difficult in this life
Yeah.
than to hold on to a passion that has a 95% chance of taking all of your money and giving you nothing in return. And yet finding ways, again, to this, I can't let this out of my life.
Right.
It has to be a part of my life.
Yeah.
I have to find a way to make everything else happen. And
You got to love it because it doesn't always love you back.
right, you know what I mean?
But at the same time, I personally feel like I've gotten so much out of music. I've definitely gotten, sure, I put a lot of money into it, and that hasn't come back to me in the form of money.
Oh no, right.
Right.
That's what I'm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we fight so hard, right? To
Yeah.
keep it in our life. Because if we were looking for monetary payback, then nobody but a fool, I guess, right? Stays on this long. Like,
Right.
You love it for every other reason. Nobody's against it, right? But that's how you do it. That's what makes you fight so hard. Like because you try to.
Yep.
Or maybe you don't even try. You just fall into a season. You're like, man, I haven't picked up my guitar in X amount of weeks, months, or I haven't touched my keyboard, or I haven't. Written a song, but then like you notice you're getting more and more like depressed. The dark beast is sleeping up. You're like, nah, I know what this is. I need to fix, and I know how to get it.
Yeah.
Let me pick up an instrument. Let me go write a song. Let me go create.
I can't go a few days without not playing. Like after I had my surgery, it had to be about 2 weeks, and that was definitely rough. But as soon as the sling came off, I was like, I can do something.
How many strums can I do before I actually
and then
must put this down?
now I can play for probably about 45 minutes to an hour without needing a break, and I think I'm good on it. But yeah, it's been it's always a challenge to keep it involved in your life, and it's difficult to get it to come back to you in the form of monetary gains, which is why I've personally just taken there's a lot of life experiences that people would pay a lot of money for that I just get to do for free.
That's true.
Right. And I mean, and the thing is, I find. I personally take it. I do like the business side as well as the artistry side, which isn't always common, right? And Damon, you know that, but it's like I find it's just like songwriting, but in the language of business.
Yep.
And when you, just like music, right? When we put whatever challenge in front of us, I want to know how to sweep now.
Right.
Or I want to be able to, fluently, masterfully be in and out of these two scales or these modes together, right? When you put in that type of like, okay, here's the challenge, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
Then you do get creative. You do get very creative. But then when you succeed, how much better does it feel? And you're like,
Right,
because I created
exactly.
this thing, but then I also created over here in a completely different way. It's like a more unseen way, but you found the opportunities. You negotiated a network with whoever the content people you needed to, right? Rub the right shoulders with the right people, had the right content to bring. You were prepared doing whatever it was you were doing, so you had a product to bring or a service to provide at the time. Bada boom, bada bing. So yeah, no, it's you got to love it. You got to be creative. You got to be innovative. But if you are, and if you really,
It's an art form like anything else.
It does pay for. Like
And,
you will get both back the financial benefit, but also life experience. Like the things that you can just say, I do this every week. I do this when I want to. Are things that people are like, man, I wish I could.
Right, exactly.
I wish you could too. I love music. I think it's
And that's the spirit of this podcast. You can, and we're going to help you find out how.
The only secret to it, it's not all those things that you see in commercials everywhere. The secret to playing guitar or doing this is right. The secret,
Oh, like Esteban?
the secret, it's not a secret. It's called practice.
Yes.
Rep. REPS. Reps. Rep it
Yeah,
out.
and
Yup.
to
You're not repping
quote
it out, you're not getting it.
to quote Adam Neely, repetition legitimizes.
Don't it though?
That's a good way of
Which
summarizing
is
the
dangerous
Suzuki
outside
method.
of music, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm paraphrasing, but the Suzuki method is like a 16th century, pretty much supposed to be like a
I don't think it's
method of
16th
learning how to
century.
play any sort of instrument. But all it says is
Most of it is very specific,
thousands and thousands of repetitions
Right.
plus knowledge creates skill.
and
in a nutshell.
that's it. That is it. Period.
And there's no shortcut to those reps.
So that is great advice for up and coming musicians. But to be on today's topic of soundboards, let's get started with a beast that Queen has in his basement that we would be using for live sound should we have opportunities to do so.
It really is a
It is
behemoth too. Tell us about it, man.
32-channel Mackie mixing board. What's it called?
It is called the Mackie SR32-4. And the reason why is because it has 32 channels and 4 subgroup channels. And we'll go into that a little bit more later. It also happens to be the same soundboard that you and I learned signal flow, and Sean as well. We were all in the same class with
Shout
Professor
out
Campos.
Western Michigan University. Woo, woo. Math majors, multimedia arts, technology.
We love the math department. We love you guys.
I die every time you guys make that bullhorn a little inside. It just
You know what? When we finally get a drop for it, by the way, let's just record ourselves doing it, and that's our drop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You guys thought you were getting high quality bullhorn.
In any
You're
case,
getting me.
it's the same board that they have in the Corman studio. It's one of the student studios there that if you end up going to Western and taking any sort of like entry-level audio engineering classes, you're going to learn how to run signal flow off this board. It's a perfect, good example of how analog signal flow works on any sort of board.
Yep. And it has 32 channels, which is more than enough for
More than enough.
That's how you know you've
32.
gotten into the minors of the majors right there.
Yeah.
When you need 32 channels, you're doing a thing.
Yeah.
Sean, can you bring up our picture of the SR324?
Ooh, that's it. That's
Hey, look at that, baby.
It's
Isn't she
pretty.
beauty?
It is. It really is.
Yeah. So we'll take a more focused.
So many knobs and buttons, you guys.
What do they all do? Well, what we're going to do is focus in on. Ooh, look at that zoom.
action?
Go, Sean. Go, Sean.
Do you like?
Oh, the Google Foo is
Isn't she
strong.
beautiful? Now, the one I have, this picture here is a second gen. The one I have is a first gen. I know that there's some small, subtle difference, but it's kind of superficial and doesn't really
Yeah.
matter. They're virtually the same. If we can go on to the next photo, though, which is a picture from its manual. I always recommend if you're about to buy a board and dedicate any sort of money to any piece of gear, go online, do a little research about it first. Maybe watch a few videos on it. I'm not saying read the whole manual before you buy it. I do it, but I'm a nerd. So
Shout out.
this photo here is directly from the manual, right? From the manufacturer. If we can zoom in a little bit on the strip that we see on the right-hand side. Yes, perfect. Can we zoom in and get a better look at the top? Okay, so this is, when you looked at that board before, this is the top of the channel strip. And all 32 kind of look this same way. With one exception, notice that this one says 21 and 22. And that's the reason why is because once you get to 21 on that board, they're paired as stereo inputs. Everything else is a mono input. But still, it all kind of works the same way. We have our trim pot, and that's your preamp. In a previous episode, we talked about your strength of signal and turning that strength of signal up as far as it will go without clipping.
Top to bottom, right?
Yeah, this is top to bottom.
You may encounter the word gain.
Gain.
In
That's
that
your first
very
gain
same
stage.
position, right? So the specific ties, it's always at the very tippy top of our track header, right? That first knob, and then if you see the word trim or gain, you know you're dealing with your preamp, your head, you get a good level set.
And you'll notice
for your
there's
signal.
three things on this particular knob. There's a negative 20, a U, and a positive 20. And that's basically your decibel levels, and the U is unity gain. That's what those mean.
So
That
what
means
you
zero. That's our
Add
imaginary zero.
those to your vocabulary. All of those are important on understanding what gain is and what it
very,
does in that.
very good point, because notice it doesn't say like an infinite or something like that, or so it shows 0 on the entire left side. It says negative 20, which means that even when that pot's turned all the way down, you still have signal there.
Yep. It's
And
just
you might
being
have a
reduced
mic
or
who's
resisted by 20 decibels.
yeah, you might have a mic that's nice and hot, and it might still be a little bit too much. You might not need to turn that up very high because that mic, for whatever reason, is a super strong signal by default, but you still have negative 20 decibels of sound coming out of that when it's all the way down.
Well, so
unity gain specifically means that whatever's coming out, whatever's coming in, by the way, of this gain stage is the exact same equal amount going out. Meaning if for whatever, as an example, you've got 10 decibels coming in, it'll be 10 decibels going out of the system as well. That's unity. It's a 1-to-1 ratio.
So if you need to cut that, right? Like if you need to get that to 0, you're going to pull that knob back.
And I would say I haven't had much difficulty or ran into many problems with mics, but I'll say this for any instrument using active pickups. I promise you, you have very fertile signal coming out of your sound source.
You really don't have to turn that up.
So it's like you may see that's just a great example where you may be all the way down negative 20 and understand like Queen was saying, it's not an infinite. You have a powerful signal coming out of that sound source. You do. It has just been reduced by 20 decibels. That does not mean it's not audible. If you're trying to figure out where's this hum, where's this buzz, what's picking up a what, if you got active pickups, and especially if you're not going into a grounded input or you're not going into a DI box, more than likely you're hearing those pickups. Just a little tip, a little quick tip in there on that for that.
So can we go back to that photo real quick? There we go.
Perfect.
Now scroll down a little bit. We're going to get to the aux section later, but a little bit more. All right, now we're going to go to the EQ. So that's kind of like a second gain stage for us here, because each one of these knobs if you ever use an EQ, it's pretty self-explanatory. We have our low shelf filter at the bottom, and that can boost or cut whatever we want to do to all frequencies after 80 hertz. Everything down below 80 hertz, you can either cut by 15 decibels or boost by 15 decibels.
Yep.
On the high end, we have a high pass filter at, what does that say, 12K?
Yep.
Yeah. So everything above that can either be boosted or cut, and it's a shelving filter. So if you looked at it at an EQ, it would look like a shelf. In the middle there, though, we have a parabolic EQ where we can not only boost or cut the mids by 15 decibels, either boost or cut by 15, but we can also sweep which groups of those frequencies in the mid-range we want to have boosted or cut. So you don't have to stick to just all the mids, pulling them up and down.
I think
you can
this
choose
is great
a certain
to point
group.
out. If we're looking at the image, keep that image up, Sean.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this has been something that changed from Gen 1 to the Gen 2, but you'll notice where you only see high, mid, low. You'll notice what you don't see is an extra knob. And whenever we can sweep, there is an extra knob in our mids with the letter Q. So an important thing to know is just because you have this is a professional level piece of gear, it does not mean everything on every professional piece of gear is on it, right?
Oh, you're right. I didn't notice that.
You don't have continuous frequency adjustment on this board. They've got it in preset, which is okay, but you just have to know that. So you can give booster cut at 12K with the shelf on the high end, 3K
that is
with the
different.
high
That's
mid,
different than
which
my
is still
board.
parabolic, and 800. But just seeing that, just know certain people will buy certain gears with fixed preset things because they like what it does to an audio signal. But you need to know that's what you can do with that fixed preset gear, right?
Yeah.
It can't. You may or may not be able to get a sound out of it if it can't actually touch the correct frequency that you're trying to deal with, the frequency space you're trying to adjust and augment. So just something to notice.
Very well put. Very well put.
Yep.
Let's scroll down a little bit more, and we're moving on from the EQ, and now we're going to go to our pan pots, and that's panning from left to right in your stereo field. Pretty self-explanatory. there.
But give them those. We got some really important indicators next to those pan
Exactly.
pots.
That's exactly what I was going to get to. So whenever you have signal on any channel, you're going to have this green light up underneath that one that says OL, the one that says -20. That's to show you that you have signal in this channel. No matter how strong that signal is, it doesn't matter. When there's signal there, when you're talking into the mic like I'm doing right now, if this mic was plugged into that board, you would see signal there. But then as you turn up your trim pot, your first gain stage, the one at the very top that we first mentioned, if it starts to clip where it's getting too strong, it warns you by showing you a little red dot, OL, for overload. It shows you a little red OL for overload. Now, here's a little trick about boards that a lot of people don't know.
Ooh,
Manufacturers, they lie to you on the board. When it shows you're clipping, you probably still have 6 to 12 dB of headroom. And that's
3 to
because
6 is safer to say. 12 would be
no. They usually give
really
you a
think
little
so?
bit of headroom. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Yeah, 3
So
to 6
if you-
normally have
if
headroom.
Try this at home battle.
Well, that's why you got to read the manual, actually, because the manual will show you how much
100%
headroom
right.
you have when it's showing that you're clipping when you're really not. It does that to keep you from just overdriving that anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of tricking you saying it's overdriving when it's really not. You still have some headroom there, but keep in mind that through a live concert, there might be different things. Somebody might grab that mic in a way, and even if you have that set at a perfect spot, they might drop the mic and suddenly, boom, now you actually are clipping. They want to make sure that you have headroom when you need it. But if you know that, if you read the manual and know exactly how much headroom you have there, then if you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and boost that a little bit even when you're in the red.
Well, I was gonna say,
but
even-
general rule of thumb, get it up to where it's starting to flirt with red, like the red light is kind of flickering on and off, and then back it down just a little bit.
And I will say, I love this about your board because that -20 light actually does have a purpose, and it's a perfect example of those active pickups. Because if you do have a live signal, but if that live signal is specifically not outputting at a perceivability of -20 dB, it will not flip that.
Yeah,
green
you're
switch.
right.
So
Yeah.
that's how you know. You can know in general once the green light labeled -20 is blinking. That's about where I'm at, and so I've got about 20 dB of room between it and
Unity
our
gain.
clipping, right?
Zero.
Where we don't
Yeah.
want to be at. But so yeah, you can start gauging but I love that about your board.
All right. And then back to this, we of course have pan pots. I mean, what more is there to say about
Yeah.
that? It's
Left,
panning in your
right,
cellular field.
stereo field, right?
But then underneath that, we have a solo button. The cool thing about this board is whenever you have a solo on, there's always going to be this in the mastering section, which we'll talk about later. There's going to be this little blinking light that just to let you know there's a solo on somewhere.
If you have a good manufacturer, you will have
Yeah.
some form of notification that you are in solo mode.
Because hundreds of times, there's plenty of times where even some of the best engineers will stare at their board going, why am I not
What
getting
happened
any
to all my
sound?
sound? I only hear the guitar.
And
Why
then-
do I only hear the guitar?
Solo. Something was solo.
Yeah,
That's why.
And the button above that is something that you frequently need to check. It's like, why am I not getting any sound? Oh,
Why can I not hear the
I'm muted
guitar?
on the board.
That's a mute.
That's
Yeah.
just an
That's to
overall
mute
kill
that channel.
switch, essentially.
Go back to that for us, Sean. Okay, there we go. And then we'll talk about these groups later too. But each one of those, the ones that say 1, 2, 3, 4 LR, that's how you assign where it gets bussed to. Remember, we talked about what a bus is, and a bus is a channel on which multiple signals can be combined. So you not only have L and R, which is your master bus, but you also have our auxes or our subgroups, and those are 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we'll talk about when we get into the mastering section. You can assign them to 1 and 2, 3 and 4, L and R. Or you can even assign them to 1. Say you wanted to assign it over only to subgroup 1, you would click 1, 2, and then pan it all the way to the right. So it's only in that one
And
channel.
I'll highlight this a bit later when we go over digital boards here, right? But I think it's good to point out now while we're seeing it. You notice how it says 1, 2, 3, 4 LR. What that is specifically letting you know is those buses are 3 stereo buses. Whereas like on my
There we
digital
go.
board, I've got 6 buses. All of them are mono, right? So what Queen was just saying, where if you pan his one left or right, you're gonna go ultimately into one channel. You can make it mono, whereas his right, you need to know there's the extra step. We got to hit that
Right.
button in, and then we need to choose the pan pot to go one way or the other. We have other mixers where it would be the same button type format, but it's just
Right.
imagine 6 buttons for just 1, 2, 3, 4 LR if they all had their own individual button, and that would just be a mono bus. But you can still have multiple tracks flowing into a bus, right? That's what makes a bus so useful.
So we'll actually, it's a good point to move on to that in a minute, and I'll give you the floor in just a second. I just wanted
Sure.
the fader is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
That's your mix. That's what you mix to your subgroups and or master or wherever you're bussing everything. That's where you get to choose how loud anything is.
And in the position that fader is in right now, when you start doing sound, that's where it needs to be, all of them.
And you'll see that does say
Start-
negative infinity, right? You
Right.
can
You
create
can mute-
perfect silence
Yeah.
or basically whatever the
You can mute that
mechanical
channel.
noise of
Yeah.
your board is.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you can get down to that
Right.
on a fader.
And of
but-
course, 0 is a U because that's unity gain.
Yep, exactly. And the DBs on the side are basically telling you exactly what the original first pot that we were showing was.
What are we reducing by or what are we boosting by?
Right.
So
Precisely.
So, as an example, if we have that fader set to U here, and then we have it, we have the first gain stage, the trim pot to 10 dB, whatever, it's going to be coming out 10 dB when it gets to the bus.
Well, let's be clear because we have
one to one.
This is the real, inception dream within a dream because we have to say this correctly. So if you let's
there's
say you
many
had a
other
signal
gain
flow
stages
coming
after that.
in, and let's say it has to have a constant. So we have a constant C. Our signal is coming in at C.
Yeah.
At our first gain stage, if you've boosted it to 10, it's not just C. It's C plus 10 dB. Now, when we go to read it there, what you're actually going to be seeing now is whatever the constant signal is by itself plus 10 additional dB we boosted that was not in the original signal. So
Right.
let's say that was coming in at negative 6 dB on our meter. That means my actual signal is negative 16 dB in strength. And I gave it 10 dB, so it is now outputting at negative 6, right? We've got these dreams. That's what our gain stage is, what we're leveling. I really want to make sure we are accurate when we speak on that because
That's important.
learning to
You're
read
right.
your meter
Yeah.
and understanding what is your signal, what is the gain stage, what is boosting it, what maybe you've got a plugin that is harshly cutting dB out, like you got a signal before an effects unit and it's at negative 12, but when that same signal comes out of the effects unit, it's at negative 18, and you need to figure out where my dB going, and you need to compensate for that. We need to understand what we're metering or what we're reading in our meters and what in our signal flow, where is affecting the dB change. What's
Yeah, good point.
boosting or what is reducing our signal so we can accurately effect and do what we want to do.
And for most, so this is a 32 channel board, right? It's a very, very big board. If you're using that board, you're probably doing some sort of live sound somewhere for a full group setup. If you're just getting started at home and just trying to get like your band rolling or just get a signal flow through, you're probably not going to go through those buses. You're probably not going to use all 32 of those channels.
Maybe not.
Well,
unless you're big banding at home out of the basement.
By the time that you're big banding at home in the basement, like we try to do,
You've put a lot of dollars.
You put a lot of dollars into
the
things.
basement.
'Cause the board alone that you're looking at is not cheap in the slightest.
You're right.
And you've probably gone along the way. Like I got started on a 6-channel mixer personally, and it was actually a powered mixer that came with, the Yamaha speakers that I use at home.
Yeah.
They originally came in a set that had 212 monitors and a
I'm
Yamaha.
curious when I hear 6, that usually was four monos and 2 stereo buses, or was it actually 6? Did you have 6 inputs?
It was 6 inputs. Yep. They were all.
That's enough to do some serious damage.
You could do like either.
I started with 2, so you can if you got we can do this.
But that's what, and we only used those for vocals for the most part too.
Right.
So we had 4 microphones hooked up for vocals, and then the rest of the sound that you were hearing in our practice room was the actual acoustic instruments for the bands. You can get started in doing that, and you can probably put together a live show that everyone can hear and everyone can enjoy with a 6-channel mixer, as long as you have good volume for the room to the room of the instruments.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, when you get
That
into,
takes a whole nother we get a live
Bingo.
audio engineer versus a studio audio
Exactly.
engineer and what we're listening for and dealing with.
You can try it at home with very little. You don't need this 32 channel board. I want to emphasize that. And like I said, a long time ago, the best equipment that you have in front of you is what you need, right? You don't need the fanciest of there. Like the best thing to choose for the job is what you have available. And if you need more tools for it, go out and buy them. But you can get by on, if you're creative, very little to make a live show happen.
I can't remember the name of the album, but
recording happened.
there was a great album made back in the 80s on one stereo microphone.
I believe it.
And the way they mixed the band, if the drummer needed to be quieter, they physically moved him away from that microphone.
Yeah.
I've heard stories like that.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about, I think in our first episode that we aired in microphones, we were talking about how what you used to do in recording is you would have the band on one side of the room and the singers on the other side of the room, and you had, was it a bidirectional cardioid? Bidirectional cardioid, where it was just picking up the singers on one side and then it was just picking up the bands on the other. You only need one channel to do that.
Yeah, that wasn't even a stereo mix they got out of that.
No, that was a mono recording. Yeah. So there's that we've come a long way in that, and you can do it with very little. But this is a great starting point in analog boards because it's got everything that you would need. So if you want to get all the way through and like take the time to learn all of that, first and foremost, there is nothing better than hands-on experience of playing with that board.
That's true.
Right? There's no substitute for it, period. But
you can read all about the toys, but really playing with them is how you're going to learn.
To get the most out of that hands-on experience, you should read the manual so you know what you're doing and you don't mess anything up.
And you can try to do things right. If you read enough, you're going to get enough information that'll trigger something already in you that you do know. And say, hey, well then I think I could do this with this device. And now go chase that thing. Go down the rabbit hole. You might find out you can and learn more. You will guaranteed learn more things in the process of chasing that itch. So
the only bad thing that you can really do is you can blow speakers and hurt your equipment.
Yes, you can.
So with those red lights that you see on the board that Michael is talking about,
trying to
and why
protect
I
you from
said to
doing
start from all the way down at the bottom is so you do not accidentally blow those speakers with too much noise. I want to encourage everyone to try this at home, get your hands on it and do it. But and that you really there's not a lot you can do to harm it, but that is the thing that you can do.
Well,
there is.
This is pretty uniform across nations. Like when it comes to audio manufacturing and gear, there is one thing that is for sure unified. Red is always bad.
Yes.
If your device has any indicator, any light, anything that can glow red, it is meant to tell you stop. So
Yeah.
if you
Back
pay attention
that
to red and
preamp
just
off.
manage red well, you will never damage a device. You
Right.
shouldn't, right? Or
Yep.
one off if you accidentally didn't have a fader down and you plug something in and it was just too hot or forgot to reset a game pot. You left a game pot hot from the last time you used it and you didn't know and you plug some in. You can put a pop down a system that'll blow
yeah.
a speaker or woof or
That's
something.
correct.
But if you're doing our mechanics,
Yep.
reset everything to 0.
Which
and
reminds me-
put our stuff back. You'll never have that problem.
We always have insisted that these are tools, not rules. Well, there
Yep.
are some things that are rules. And one of them is, and we'll look at the back panel of that amp later, but every board usually has something called phantom power on it. When we were talking about mics, we forgot to mention this.
Yes.
There are certain types of mics that are so sensitive that they need to have extra power themselves, and it's 48 volts. It's called 48 volt phantom power. And every board can usually supply that to any of their channels. And when you have a condenser mic plugged in with phantom power running, never unplug that.
Yep.
Never, ever unplug it. You can damage the mic. You can damage something. And if you've ever done it and it was an accident or whatever and you haven't damaged anything, you got lucky.
Yeah.
Because it's not a question of if that will happen, it's when. So the way you deal with that is when you're plugging in a condenser mic, phantom power must be off on your board. Plug your mic in with the preamp all the way down, plug the mic in, turn phantom power on, turn up your preamp and get it set. When it's time to turn it off or unplug it, turn the preamp all the way down, turn phantom power off, unplug the mic. That's a rule.
And just
If you don't want
always-
to break your stuff.
I would say, but always, right? Even more than just the preamp down, because the real issue from an electrical engineering standpoint of what is phantom power is we just have constant now actual electricity flowing in between.
48 volts of it, that's a lot.
Which you don't want to just be regularly disconnecting and connecting on that. So even with the preamp down, that signal's still flowing.
Yep.
The beauty of what the mute button is and why it really works is it is always on every analog board. It is a physically mechanical switch. Like when we think about switches in electrical,
Yeah.
it is a switch that is removing the circuit's ability to connect. It is literally disconnecting the circuit. So now turn your phantom power on. Now, or I mean, plug your instrument in, turn your phantom, do all that. But if just keeping that mute, if your step one is mute first before you either connect or disconnect, you'll never be wrong.
That's true.
Mute first, then do whatever.
Because
do.
even
Turn your
if
power
you
off, do whatever, but-
accidentally forget and unplug something without turning the power amp down, if your signal's mute, it won't go through your speakers and clip them.
Now, you could still technically damage your microphone
Yeah,
with
that's
48
true.
volts of live power going through
Yep.
if you disconnected it or connected with that. But at least that might be the only thing you damaged. And like you said, you didn't damage that. And
And
both
if you
speakers
damaged
and
one
both
channel, okay, you got, on that board, you got 31 more.
Right, exactly. So
Yeah.
just things to think
And
about.
It's
right,
not cool to do. Don't get me
Also-
wrong. You shouldn't operate going, well, I got 32 of them. Who cares?
because you
Care.
will eventually.
Care,
And then there was
but-
one. That's how it's gonna work.
And if you are buying a microphone that needs phantom power, you already know they're not cheap.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Like even on the low end, you're talking like $150 to $200 for entry level microphones.
That's for an entry cheap condenser. Yeah.
These microphones are $400, and they're my favorite vocal condenser microphone. But if I had a Shure at home, or I know my co-collaborator Colin has an SM7 in his studio, we are definitely taking the time to make sure that this does not get damaged.
Exactly.
We do not want to spend $400 again, especially if we are out of warranty.
Well, like I mean, you really right. If you take care of your equipment, you won't need to. Right. That man,
Right,
take
yeah.
care of your gear will take care of you.
And audio engineering, especially among like companies that have been around for a long time, like Shure, this stuff lasts. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, if you take care of your gear, it'll last forever. Perfect example is I just picked up some gear yesterday. I got a crossover from a company that I cannot find anything about. They're called NIH Labs. If you try to search that, you're going to get stuff about a government like health website.
Yeah.
I scoured the internet last night just trying to find anything about it, about the company, let alone the unit that I bought. The closest I could find was one magazine from 1986 talking about some of the gear, but not the one that I bought, and 2 forums where other people were going, what the heck is NIH Labs?
So how did you
And-
find the crossovers?
Julie gave it to me. It's part of that package deal she's giving me. So, I mean, it's a crossover. Just looking at it, I can figure out how to use it, but I like to read the manual, and I can't find it. If anybody out there knows anything about NIH Labs, please, God, let me know.
Contact us
because now it's a
at
mystery to me.
AxFiGroup.com.
Yeah.
And here's our theory. On one of the forums I found, somebody had one of these NIH Lab EQs, and he had found a Sony version that was identical in every possible way, even the the schematic that's printed on the top of it was identical to an NIH Labs one made a few years before that he has.
I wonder if Sony bought them.
That's what we think, yeah. Because the only difference is one said Sony, one said NIH Labs.
Yeah.
But still, I would like to know more. So if anybody knows anything about it, please let me know. This is a new mystery
The
that
National Institute of Health Labs doesn't know anything about your audio request, sir.
Oh no, yeah. The Google didn't know anything about it. So let's go back to the board, and now we can talk about aux sends.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the mastering section of
Do you need that same image up, or do you want another image?
Go ahead and pull that same image up for me if you could, Sean.
And abracasplazzle.
And then scroll up a little bit till we get back to the aux section. So that's our channel strip for the most part. The reason why the aux section here is a little bit split off from the rest
Hey, Sean,
of it.
you can actually use the zoomed in image, the pre-zoomed in image to the left of the page.
Ooh, yeah, even better.
That's just
Jump over to the left
zoomed
there.
in on the aux portion of the
Bingo. Okay, so the reason why we're coming back to this, like if you're looking at this board, and a lot of boards are configured the exact same way, you'll have your channel strip, and at the very top of it is post fader before everything's going through the fader, and then pre-fader. And then after you literally get to the fader that mixes to your mastering section, that's everything's post-fader. But there's sometimes where you want to send a custom type of mix that's not the same that's going to the house, that's going to your mastering section or anything like that. And that's what auxes can be used for. They're really just like outputs that can be used for whatever purpose you want. But typically and traditionally, they're used for sending custom mixes for either in-ear monitors or floor monitoring. They're all mono sends for one.
I think there's even text that we can see here in the manual that says.
Yeah.
I was just loving that it just happened to be.
It just happened to be right up there.
Yeah. So for instance, let's say I have a really good mix in the house, and that sounds really good.
Good job, Mackie.
But the drummer needs to hear the guitarist a little bit more, or the singer a little bit more. Instead of messing with the house mix, I'm going to send him his own special custom one through one of those. On aux 1, I'm going to, on each channel that I need to have that, I'm going to turn them up and mix them however they need to be for him. There's, in the mastering section, a pot specifically for the master of that channel, and that's what he's going to hear. And notice that it says pre at the top. Then there's these two. If you scroll down a little bit for me there, Sean. Yeah. So this board has 6 aux sends. And the first 2 are always pre-fader. The bottom 2 are always post-fader.
But can be
and the 2 in the
switched
middle
to
can be
bottom.
switched.
Yep.
That's what that button is. It switches from pre-fader to post-fader. And here's another one of those rules. Never send a headphone mix post-fader. So those bottom 2, you can't use them for that purpose. I'll say it again. Never send a headphone mix post-fader. And we learned this the hard way, even though we were told otherwise.
You're going to inevitably arrive at a situation where someone needs a level change and you're going to give it to them. And then you're going to go back to your mix and realize you just changed your entire mix.
It's worse. It's more than that.
Well, that to me is like, now you got to go back.
It's more
and
than
make it
that.
fit.
And you might remember that we made this mistake, even though we were told by Campos, don't do this. And the reason why is because a post-fader signal is just going to be your instrument, your mic, whatever, and the strength of signal boosted with the trim pot, with the preamp, and nothing else. But as it goes through all these other things, you might be sending it to other processors, other gain stages, through the EQ, and then also boosted in the mix from the fader itself. That's going to be blaringly loud in their ears. So much so that it can cause immediate hearing damage. And I don't remember the name of the musician. Permanent hearing damage. There was a singer back in the 70s who, there was this studio. They were a very high level studio, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but they had some new guy there, and he sent the singer a post fader headphone mix accidentally, and it destroyed one of her eardrums. She had to have surgery for it. She successfully sued that studio into oblivion over that.
Blowing eardrum.
And you and I did this one time because we were working on a student
I didn't
project.
blow nobody's in the first off. I wasn't no. The show. No eardrums have ever been blown. When we were still wet behind the ears, when we were still learning, when we were in Western Sound Studios learning, you were doing a session,
and I came in later on. So everything was already set up. Signal flow was already ran. Then everybody left, and then I was trying to help you being the engineer while you were recording. I don't remember what you were recording, but I remember that we were getting mad at each other because you kept telling me, I need to hear.
Still to this day think Queen did this just to get back at me. It was like, skip you, Trevor. Because my eardrums were almost ruptured. I remember now.
You set that signal flow up. I had nothing to do with it. I walked into that studio hours after you guys had been tracking. And I did.
Right. We had been tracking fine. Remember what he said, and my eardrums didn't blow at all.
Well, here's the thing. So he's telling me, oh, I need to hear this a little bit louder. I need to hear that a little bit louder. And we were using the faders to do that. And then at one point he was like, turn that up to this. I turned it up to that, and suddenly he rips the headphones off of his ears.
Oh yeah,
because
whatever you did was a switch. You were like, I'm like, bro, I'm not hearing it. You're like, yo, I'm moving or whatever. And I'm like, bro, I'm not hearing it. And you go, oh, this, and you pushed it because it wasn't like, because a fader is always like, even if you do it quickly, a fader fades into a thing.
You were mixing your headphones with faders.
And then you switched the button. It was like, hi, I am right here.
You were mixing your headphones with faders, which tells us that we were breaking that cardinal rule in the first place.
That doesn't even...
Bullshit. Because it took us 3 years to remember.
Bro, we were mixed with... Okay, first off, this man doesn't know the board. So this amazing piece of machinery, NWSS Studios,
Onyx
literally
Series 64,
has a mix row of faders, and then it's got a bus row of faders. It literally has
mix pass, channel path.
Duplication so that you can have your different... We were not using
that is the problem, Trevor.
So to do our headphones.
What's really cute about all of this is
the problem.
Is you have two audio engineers here, neither one of them trying to own up to the mistake that definitely
No. The man blew my eardrum today. He admitted to it on the air.
The man blew my eardrum. But he's saying
bullshit. I don't care. I will cut that out later. Bullshit. You were tracking with other people way before I showed up. I walked in. I wasn't even there for 15 minutes before you're like, hey, turn that up. And I did. And you're like, bro, oh my God, what? And at the time, I felt self-conscious.
This man hyper pushes fader so fast.
I was straight up like,
switches people.
What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? 3 years later, I remember, wait, he was telling me to turn up the fader for his headphone mix, meaning that he was sending himself a post-fader headphone mix.
The mix path. There are two completely different...
That's the point, Trevor. Wait. That's the point. That board has auxes for that. You shouldn't have been using the channel path or the mix path.
Circuitry for the channel path. So
it is, but that's not what those channels are for.
We make on the mix path wouldn't make those.
Bullshit.
This guy.
Awkward.
This is why we study our board. You want to know why we nerd out and me and him read manuals? Because we go back and forth like this about everything.
Anyway, that's what aux sends are for, which you were not using. You should have been using the channel path or the mix path.
No, but I really
not what those are for.
But I really feel like, because remember, first off, one of those or two of those aux buses were like under maintenance, like they weren't even usable. They were already out of it.
Yeah,
and
there were a few of them.
I want to say I thought there was something else in the signal path. We just heard right earlier in that week in class, like, hey, right now we're trying to problem solve basically or whatever. And so we said, okay, like we knew we could still get the headphone mixes we needed because we have a channel path.
Okay.
I do agree. Preferably
you should not have used that either way.
It would have been on an aux path preferably anyway, but I'm pretty sure like at least half of the aux sends were down.
Well, in any case, so we're losing time.
We can jump on it.
We've got some material to cut anyway, too.
Yeah,
so that's fine.
Well, we always do two different versions, one for PMN and then one extended one.
And really for digital, we are really thinking of the same concepts. We're just really going to shift over to some of the benefits.
Well, then let's quickly touch base on the mix path on the mastering section.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
So let's go back to our photos. Nice. There we go. And here, this is it. This is our mastering section. And notice that there are those 4 faders right next to the master. That master, that one fader all the way over to the right,
bottom right,
that is a stereo. That's your typical master bus where everything gets combined if you want it to. Because remember, on each one of those channels, it has an assignment option for 1, 2, 3, 4, or LR, your master. You can choose to have it go to both. You can choose to have it go to more than one of those. Or you can choose to have it go to, say, 1 and 2, and then assign it to L and R before it goes out. But then on the back of the board, let's switch to the next photo. There we go. And then scroll into that first one in the top right corner.
Please and thank you.
Please and thank you.
Thank you for having manners, Damien. God,
on the back of this board,
barbarian we work with over here.
on the back of this board are the inputs. Each thing has a mic input. It also has a line input that can also accept instrument inputs. Instrument level inputs, that is. And then it also has an insert. And that's one of my favorite things because what that does is it interrupts the signal flow through the channel there where you can put it on a patch bay or make it run through any sort of other effects processors you want to do pre-fader, and then it sends it right back in. So what you would typically use there is one of those Y cables, an insert cable, an effects cable, because it effectively makes your signal going down through the channel path, stop, take another path real quick, and come back through. If you scroll down just a tiny little bit there,
You may hear it called an insert loop sometimes. Because I'm putting a loop in the circuit.
Sean, scroll down a little bit there for me. A little bit more. Okay.
Keep on going. Keep on cruising.
So the cool thing about this board is too, and a lot of them work the same way. If I plug in a mono cable, right, an unbalanced mono cable, that insert will allow me to send it somewhere else. It does not interrupt the signal. And I can send that to another channel on the board, or send that to something else and send that back into a different channel on the board. So I can have an unaffected original and an affected second one that I can mix. But then if you take a balanced cable and plug it all the way in, then that means in like 1 click, 2 click, and no jokes. So if you plug it in 1 click, it's a send and does not interrupt the signal flow. You can send that anywhere you want, and the original still passes through to the channel strip. If you plug it all the way in, stop it.
All the way.
Stop. This is a family show.
It is.
If you plug that
This is how families
all the
are
way
made.
in, then suddenly the signal is now interrupted and it's looped. So a lot of boards work that way too. Go back to the photo for me, please. And then down at the bottom here is a good idea of what the back panel looks like. We have our mic input, our line input, and our insert on each and every channel. Now there's a second one for the mastering section. There are inputs and outputs for almost each one of those subgroups, each one of those aux sends, and just some other ones that you can just use for whatever purpose. And again, that's one of the, that's a good breakdown of how any sort of soundboard works, whether it's any sort of analog board works, which is then a good jump start to moving on to digital boards and the differences.
So we can jump on, Sean, if you can pull up, I think the first image of the digital boards, and it should be the next image if we want to pull that up. We really
Bingo.
There we go. So, this is specifically the Behringer XR 18, which is the digital board that I have at home. And I'll show an image later that really gives a comparison. What's the benefit, right? Why did we go digital? More than just the ability to take advantage of the modern computer, right? Over the last 40, 50 years, everybody's been finding a way to incorporate the modern computer into their thing. But really the big benefit that came besides faster processing is that we save size. The first board that we went over, the Mackie, literally is called a desk workstation. It is nothing shy of an entire large desk required to even support the behemoth and go with it. Whereas my board has half of the input. So I've got a 16 channel as far as mono inputs rather than the 32, but you can put my one board on pretty much the front corner, the top corner of his board. And that's it. I think that whole thing is maybe 9 inches by 12 inches or something like that. And yet I still have, I've got 16 mono inputs. We've got 4 different stereo inputs. Then we've got 6 mono outputs on the back. Sean, if you can go to the next image. So when we are, so that's going to be a zoom in of the top, right? We've got on the top, right over in the right corner, you can think of it like a quote unquote master's output section. You've got main, left, and right, like we talked about for the LR on the Mackie. You've actually got a couple RCA auxiliary outs up there. That's what you see, where you see the white and then a color. It would be white and red, our normal left-right audio. And then you've got a headphone master out and then the knob that would control that headphone master out. But on the next photo, we'll see the back of the unit. Sean, if you can flip to that one. And so, right, when you're looking at the back, it's really simplified. On the left, you've got a power supply next to a switch. Going into there, you've got a USB, right, because we're digital now. So what that really means is that we have put in a analog to digital converter, a multiplexer on the way in that basically converts our signal from audio or electrical world, the analog world, into computer language, zeros and ones. Yep. So now we're talking in computer, and that's the signal coming out. You've got a Cat5 cable, that's just another higher speed transmission of signal down think about your internet cable. That's a Cat5 cable, your Wi-Fi cable. And then we've got MIDI. Now we're actually back into audio inputs, right? So the two there are MIDI, which is an older form of audio. We've got an optical
No,
input.
it's not audio. It's code. We'll do all episodes
You
on
are
MIDI.
correct, but I mean, like, right, but we're
that's all digital.
exactly turning our audio instruments into digital code, into MIDI signal. Then we've got an optical input, which is again, it's a older style of connector, but still used especially for percussive things with very quick electrical transients. And then we've got 6 mono outs. And so the same way that you see them as 6 on here, this is just like on Queen's
You mean
board,
those ones that say accents?
where his say, accents, right?
Yeah.
Where his says 1, 2, 3, and 4. Instead of these being pre-paired together physically in the circuitry of the board, these are actually all mechanically mono, but then we have ways to, by software, connect them into stereo aux-ins, stereo pairs, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. So you've got all
By
of
software and the right connection. Because if you're going to turn one into a stereo, it's still going to be mono unless you have a balanced cable, stereo
wide enough
cable.
to go exactly, yeah. But you can see how we've got the functionality. We've got all of our inputs and outputs and things that we want, but we're in such a smaller framework to do so, right? Because a lot of the hardware required for his board, for the analog boards, because that's all analog circuitry. That's all actual physical circuitry where we're able to take a lot of that interior gunk out and say, I've got a software that can do that. So now, Sean, if we can go to the next plugin. And so this kind of gives a look. I wanted this shot to specifically show, you'll see if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, that's my unit, but the 3 units next to it are actually all different variants of it with fewer or more channels.
Yeah, and they are rack mountable too. His is a desktop version. This one's made, you can put it in a rack mount and carry it.
To chime in here too, actually, Amaranth uses I think it's the XR12 in our practice space. That's the board that we use, and actually we take that with us live because it's rack mountable. And one of the things that we are able to do, because this is all digitized, right, is we have backing tracks that we run because there's a lot of instrumentation that we add onto it that we're not going to play live. So our backing tracks are run through that and controlled through the Behringer board. And you can download an app, the XAir app, on the App Store, either through Google Play or Apple, and you can download it to your phone. And these rack-mountable versions also transmit a Wi-Fi signal.
Yes, they do.
So if you're transmitting a Wi-Fi signal, what you'll do is you'll connect your phone directly to that Wi-Fi, connect to the app.
Let's correct that. All of these models transmit by Wi-Fi. It is by Wi-Fi is actually how we are connecting to our device. And some people may think it's Bluetooth. We're not actually doing it by Bluetooth. Wi-Fi is a far faster connection, and that's what you need for live audio.
Correct.
Otherwise, you get hella latency.
And exactly, you can't
More
have
stable,
that latency
too.
live, honestly. So you'll connect your phone directly to that. You won't have any internet connection to it. You'll be connected directly to the board. But what we do is we have buses for each member of the band, right? There's a feed for me, there's a feed for Colin, there's a feed for Ken, and then we are able to connect to the console through our phones, and then connect to that bus. And then the bus has assigned, levels for the backing track, levels for each person's vocals, levels for each person's signal input, and I can just dial in my mix on my phone without even talking to a sound guy.
That truly is the cheat code for groups, like small groups, if you're trying to.
Exactly.
find
And
ways
we
you can
run
take
our
more
own
control.
in-ear monitors for that from this board that we connect through. And
I want one so bad.
And then all we send to the house is a stereo left-right mix, so they don't have to mic everything to it, right? We're direct in through our guitars, our bass, and our vocals. We're controlling every bit of that the way that we want it to come through, and we're putting all of the extra software that we want to put into it, and then sending that mix to the house. So we've just got full control of everything. That's the way.
And about control, that board's control, its interface is an iPad.
Yeah.
iPad Pro specifically. There are digital boards that aren't exactly like this.
You can use any usually pro level tablet. It does have to have a certain amount of a CPU with a certain amount of processing output to be able to do what the software needs to do. But it does not have to be Apple iPad.
Nope.
I particularly am an Apple guy, but you can use the Windows Microsoft Surface Pro. Right,
I have
definitely run that.
I have a Samsung Galaxy Tab that will probably definitely run it as well.
Right.
Actually,
Well, there are digital boards that aren't like that. There's the XI Expression. That's the one we learned in school. There's literally tons of them. They are so much more expensive, though.
Yes.
These ones are very affordable. And there's another one affordable that we'll talk about later.
Really quick,
it's this little guy right there.
Hold up. No, not yet. Sean, pull that up. Yeah, that same image back up, because the one thing that I really want to go on, and it rolls off what you just said, Queen. The reason I love this image is you can actually see. So what was the big thing about digital is once we were able to remove a lot of those hardware guts and things that forced us to have these large interfaces, we could actually rethink about the design, the engineering side of the design of, okay, well then what does this need to look like? And so you see now this thing it looks like a boombox, you know, a little
Right.
cube. But now when that's all you need, now you can put that into a rack, and now you can take it to a live show, right? And we can do all those things. And I want to go to the next really quick. I want to go to the next image because this is the software, right? It's got some different things across the top, right? As we select the channel strip, this would be if on the far left channel strip, it says kick drum. So this would be as if we've selected the kick drum and now we're dealing with things specific to that track. But you can see across the top, input, sends, gate, which is our noise gate, dynamics, which is really our compressor, EQ, inserts, right, which is going to be our effects, delays, reverb, things like that. You've got all of these things per channel strip, but I'm now doing this on an iPad or a tablet rather than all those knobs and things that you notice at the top of our channel strip on our analog board.
Right.
We need those
because you're able
pieces
to
for.
do that. Now, what you're looking at here is basically a graphic EQ of specifically just the kick channel.
Just that channel.
Yep. And you're not as limited into what's built into the hardware on the board. You can actually do a ton of extra stuff.
And Sean, can you zoom into that top
processing.
right-hand corner real quick? Keep going, Damien. But
you can do a ton in post processing to get that stuff done, and these work wonderfully with programs like Ableton Live or Main Stage.
And so this right here, what I want to have them zoom in on is very specifically the difference when we were talking about that image in the Mackie manual. What you'll notice are 3 knobs, and you'll see at the top it says PEQ, and then it's got the little bell curve. Well, the P stands for what Queen had said earlier, parabolic EQ. And what we're talking about is that parabola form, right? That U shape. But you notice while we have 3, now this is a continuous parabolic EQ. So I have a knob that can adjust the gain or if I want to boost or cut at whatever frequency. But then I've got a freak knob, right? Freaks in the house. I got a freak knob. That's the knob that actually lets me adjust where is the peak of that parabolic bell curve, right?
Yeah,
So
notice that one's set at 60 hertz.
And then I've got one that says width. You'll also see the letter Q. And what that is now if you imagine that cone, I'm opening and closing the base of the cone, saying how wide or how narrow is that parabola going to be of the area I'm affecting, boosting, or cutting. And so those, right, this is just another option of what an EQ can look like, right? So this one has continuous adjustment across the frequency spectrum. And then there are other ones like the analog board we just looked at where it is a preset. Hey, it is hardwired into the analog circuitry. It affects this frequency range at some fixed width, right? It's not an adjustable width, and that's just what you're boosting and cutting to make happen. But other than that, right, when we go digital, why did we really do it? Because there were digital boards before this one, before the iPad, and they were expensive because they were just as big as those huge desktop behemoths, but now you have a very high-grade computer that is literally tailor designed to only do this thing. So you paid a lot of money for a lot of hard material and for a high advanced computer.
Yeah.
What brought it into the reach of your do-it-at-home musician, producer, come up is that now I've got a unit that they can make small enough. It doesn't cost $1 billion just for material and the size of the thing.
Exactly.
And then I'm willing to go out, right, and foot my own computer. That's what you're buying a tablet for.
Yep.
So they say, look,
That's
we'll give you all the
point,
analog hardware, and we'll give you everything but the CPU, and then we'll give you the software you need to put on your CPU if you'll go buy your CPU.
Right.
And every at-home producer goes, well, you know, that's $2.5 grand, $3 grand,
Done.
not 15, 25 grand.
Done.
Deal.
Yeah,
Right? And you
exactly.
make it work. You run. So
For sure.
By the way, that's also an audio interface, which means that he can not just take a stereo bounce of everything and record it into his computer. He can take each and every one of those individual
Multi-track
channels and track them completely separately.
that's what we are sending down that USB cable, right? That first digital port that we got on the back of our.
And personally, as a musician who's played all over this state of Michigan and the Midwest and toured out on the East Coast, I can tell you, having done it for over 20 years, when you embrace the digital, you go from having to put all of your equipment in a van with a trailer into
in a van down by the river.
well, you know, if you didn't find anywhere to sleep, that's where you're pitching a tent for the night.
Yeah, exactly.
But it now, like Amaranth is a 3-piece, we can put all of our guitars in the trunk of a car with our pedal boards, and the rack mount will fit in the back seat with one of us, and that's it. That's it. We're in a car and we can travel everywhere.
Tons.
We don't need to have this
do a
gigantic
lot of damage with
Roadies in 2022, bro.
Actually, we have talked about maybe bringing Michael along to help do sound for us at
I'm down.
places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Word on that.
But
This is literally how I'm finding out. Like, yo, holler.
Try this at home.
Wait, I think you have mentioned it to me
Yeah,
before.
I have. We just haven't had specific dates yet for it, which we're actually hopefully having a discussion about in a few days. Now that I'm recovered enough from surgery that I can practice and perform, we've got a lot of shows that we need to look at, decide which ones that we're going to accept that we can do.
Those are going to be fun.
Yep. Yeah. And we're hopefully traveling a little bit with those too. You know, not like going and doing like 3 or 4 dates in a weekend. We're going to do one day in a weekend and just enjoy ourselves in that city. You
Amen
know,
to
get
that.
around.
That's way more fun.
It is.
For sure.
The touring lifestyle is it's so hard to maintain.
The road life.
It's a blast. Yeah. I would never trade any of the time that I did with my boys in No Life, which are now called Heartsick. Shout out! They just released a single. They just released a single with Clint Lowry of Seven Dust. I'm super proud of my homies there. They've been doing this for over 20 years in Michigan. They are homegrown Michigan metal, and their success is a result of their work ethic. Check them out.
You didn't know we grew more than corn here in Michigan. We grow metal as well.
We do.
That's Indiana's thing. There's more than corn in Indiana. It's the best part of
we have a
America.
lot of hops here, and we also have a lot of THC products that are grown in the state as well.
Hey, you keep our corridors a secret. We do not know anything he is talking about. Michigan is nothing here. Nothing is here.
Oh, come on. It's
It's on
completely
public
legal.
record.
I mean, there are
legal.
dispensaries popping up like all over the city.
You need to cut that.
I know.
You need to cut that.
And you heard
That's
it here
gotta come out.
first.
All right.
That is how the spread of STIs
We're at an hour
go.
and 10 right now, so let's
Okay.
circle.
Yeah,
into-
that's cool.
We're gonna cut that out, and then we'll fade to whoever's gonna.
We're
take
going
us
to
out
cure
today.
this episode of his STIs.
Well, wait.
that's what we're gonna do.
Can we touch base on this guy a little
Yeah,
bit? I mean, this
yeah.
is also a digital board, but the main difference is instead of having an iPad as your interface where your knobs and your buttons are, it actually has some physical ones here.
Yeah, so what he's talking about is the Rodecaster Pro, which I'm sitting in front of right now, especially for our folks who are listening in and not watching us. There's a really great interface for this. It's got 4 channels for microphones for inputs, but it actually sends out a lot more because you can connect a USB device to it. You can Bluetooth connect a phone to it. And it also has like an aux out to connect any other device to it to output. It has a built-in headphone amplifier for all of our mixes. And it has a touchscreen interface where you can literally go in, and I don't want to do it now because we're recording, but I can tap each one of these and it's got a built-in noise compressor, it's got a noise gate, it's got a de-esser built into it too.
Can I touch base? That's a really good point about digital boards too, is you can still have all these types of effects. You know, in a previous episode, we were first starting to talk about signal flow. We talked about all these different effects. On my board, that analog board, I have to physically, with cables and wire, if I want all these other effects in there, like dynamics processors and everything, I have to own the hardware unit in the first place.
Completely different units.
I have to physically patch them in. But with these guys, you have the same power, but you don't have to have a whole rack mount of processors. I mean, there's pros and cons to having each, but I think you can see there's a lot of pros to having a digital board that has
especially
all the
for
stuff.
trying this at home, right? If we're trying to start out and we're trying to get going, we
And-
need to be as efficient as possible.
I think that the biggest thing for embracing the digital is just that, is if you are like a working musician who is putting a lot of time and energy into it, if your band takes the time to learn the technology and embrace it. I love analog sound. I love my Fender Twin amp. It sounds amazing, and there is nothing that is going to replicate the truest tone from that, that you're going to get in soft.
Right.
But it's so close right now to being almost exactly what it is, that if you embrace the digital, it's more compact. It's so much easier
many more
to travel.
conveniences.
Some of the most
It's not-
trained ears can't tell the difference.
it's not nearly as expensive, and it doesn't take up the physical space in wherever you're trying to do things with it, which is definitely something that you need to consider when you're starting to do this, especially if you're trying this at home with the podcast. It's just you in a room with an interface and a microphone.
You really can use it get down
with however
to
many-
one channel,
Yep.
right? If it's just you, right? So
If you're starting to take this into music a little bit more, you're gonna immediately notice the physical needs of everyone you're playing with.
Yep.
First and foremost, the drums take up a ton of space.
Oh,
and
man,
if your bassist is like one of those old school bassists who has to have that Ampeg SVT cab, or the cab and amp combo, that's
Hey man, guitarists are just as guilty.
Oh yeah, that's an
Present
8x10.
company accepted. I'm talking about you, Sean. And that big old Marshall.
Ooh, how you gonna throw? He throwing dirt at people.
I will
Can't
tell
even
you though-
defend themselves.
I will tell you, he's shaking the camera. No,
Sean, yeah.
good for you, dude. Good. Your voice is heard even though it's not heard.
Right, let it rip. And I do want to add it really quick. I hope that viewers, listeners, you really are catching what's really going in common from one unit to the next as we even progress through the series, from signal flow to microphone, and what's the benefit, right? So we used to have to buy all of the gear.
Yeah.
You bought a desktop mixer. That literally was all it was. Then you had to go buy a whole nother small desk worth of gear and effects, and that had to have its own crate and rack and all that thing is going.
You need to have power conditioner. You need
And
to
you
have
notice
the cables
we're
on it.
always using the same pieces of gear. Like, what do we always need? Well, I need a gate, a noise gate. I need a compressor, and I need an equalizer.
Yeah.
There are so many more things that we want to have besides that. But what you'll notice that it will come standard with every sort of professional mixing station or board or anything in this area now that you're going to find. You'll notice there's certain things in common. Why are they in common? Like, pay attention to that. Those are the things that are most important. So they just took 5 pieces of rack gear and an entire desk workstation and put it into a 12-inch by 13-inch by 3-inch, 3.5-inch case. That's the benefit, right? We just took a whole quarter of a room or half a room's worth of gear that can now fit in a
book bag.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That is what truly happened. And like you said, for certain pieces of gear, you're right. There will those audiophiles of us who know it will never technically be exactly the same.
Right.
But you can get so close that even as an audiophile, I can say, look, the only
the
difference is so small. I know I only know it because I've got 20 years listening to this cab. Or this
right,
type of
exactly.
amp.
Like,
I know the sound this circuitry makes. That's
honestly,
it.
if you've got the budget to go into a big studio with all of that equipment and record, sure, I guess go ahead and
enjoy
spend
yourself.
the
I
money.
say have the experience.
Have
love
the
it.
experience.
It'll be great.
Do it, right? If you're on a budget and you don't want to go to a huge studio like that, you can do all of this at home with very little
Here's
stuff.
what you need to try.
Here's
this
what
at
you
home,
need to
man.
try
That's
it at home. And
That's
also
right.
now, like in 2022, a MacBook with Logic Pro or a Windows machine with Ableton is the same as recording in a $500,000 to $1 million studio in the 80s.
Easily.
Rules, not rules.
Easily.
You just got to know what you're doing with what
And
you
the best
got.
part is you don't have to literally physically cut and glue tape together to edit. It's like,
We ain't even going back that far, bro. That's,
we're done.
that's nightmare.
That's not including the plugins that you buy as software separate from that. That's just the base programs alone. You can do so much in those too that I guarantee you if you have like a big favorite pop band, like Billie Eilish right now, right?
Right.
Everything they do is in Logic and Main Stage, even live.
it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Everything is done through 9 Inch Nails. Everything that they do goes through Main Stage.
Well,
They're
Trent
embracing
Reznor's
the-
technically an employee of a sorts of,
yeah.
of Apple.
Yeah.
He's in their book. He's got an Apple Connect.
Well, I watched
Sponsored, is he?
I watched like a rig rundown or an interview of their live sound person, and they run he says everything goes through Main Stage, and
Easily.
he builds a board for Trent to have a bunch of different vocal effects that he can stomp on stage, so he has like creative control to make each performance unique still, and it's not just automated all the way through. He has controls that he can hit to do it when he's just feeling it in the moment.
And by the way, what he's using to control that are MIDI signals. When we were talking about those little 5-DIN ports, MIDI controllers. We're going to do future episodes where we're going to get into MIDI. And I'm going to actually show you guys.
It's hard
Here's the coolest part. Talking about doing it yourself, I'm going to show you how to physically build these things yourself, MIDI controllers.
For those of you out there for that,
That-
I think that is actually its own horror. That might be season 2.
That might
That's probably a good
alone
idea.
Could be like
we could
constructing.
I
we could waste a lot of time talking about MIDI.
I think that is prime content for our Patreon once that's launched.
Woohoo.
Actually, that can be a benefit for some of our Patreon subscribers. Is
That's a good idea.
Michael shows you how to wire down the breadboard.
Yeah. I mean, I'll show you how to solder it. Whatever.
Get it done. But no, I mean, there's so much you can do in the world of audio. Pick a lane, pick a few lanes, have fun.
Embrace the tech. Embrace the tech and have fun.
Are we all in unison, right? And when it comes to this life period, it's about the experience. If you've got a way to have a better experience, or you can go experience a thing that you think, hey, I might not have another opportunity to do this, go do it. I highly encourage you every time.
Yeah.
Go do it. Have that experience. Even
And if you're worried about sucking at it, you're going to.
Yep.
You're going to suck at it for a very long time.
And
unless you don't, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like that's the thing. Like you won't worry about sucking at it.
There's
Like, you know you
prodigies.
don't suck when you don't suck because you know you
Yeah.
don't suck.
That's true. There's prodigies. You're probably not one of them. You're going to have to get there. You're going to have to get there the same way the rest of us
Yeah.
did, and that is to suck at it for a very long time until you just don't anymore.
And even if you are a prodigy, you know that there's going to be plateaus that you're going to have to work through.
Exactly.
truth. Yep.
And when you get to those plateaus, you're going to suck at whatever that is for a while, no matter how talented naturally
You
you
must
are.
be willing to fail to learn a new thing.
Yep.
Otherwise, you will never learn a new
Yep.
thing.
I have bombed on so many stages. I don't do it anymore.
It's
I don't do it
important. It
Thank
feels,
goodness you're paying for these shows now, because early in my career,
it doesn't feel good when it happens.
No, it
but
doesn't.
it
It
happens
feels
to everybody. And when it passes,
It's okay.
and if it ever happens again, it's not going to feel nearly as bad as it did before.
Nope.
And
learn
then
it's
in
not the end of the
retrospect,
world.
it's going to kind of feel good because you're going to be like, yeah, remember that time we totally bombed on stage and everybody just walked out.
I think
Ooh,
maybe
I learned some
only that
lessons
joke
that day.
feels
Yep,
good.
yep.
Everything else about that memory will still feel as bad as it sounds.
Well, that's
Well, I can think of a few of them that might cause me to have a panic attack if I think about it hard enough.
well, that's that's all good info, and I think that's a good wrap for episode 2 on sound
call it a wrap.
boards here.
Did we wait?
Let me
Did we
take
miss
that again.
anything?
Let me take that again. We didn't really miss anything. No. We did miss a lot of things, sure, but there are other
lot of
things.
things.
There are things that we need to go over in more detail.
Oh, that's always
This
the
is just
case.
a
I mean,
high-level overview
yeah,
of it.
we don't have a really.
But that's
time
going to be like Patreon content, like truly more of our high level detail coverage, just so that you know if there is anything that you want more high level input on, or you want us to go deep dive into something, let us know, right? Contact us at axfigroup.com. Those are the things we're going to go in and intentionally create based off request, right? I mean, we've got an outline of I guess you want to call it a education plan that we want to take you through. But we want to encourage participation from the community. Right?
Yeah.
We want to be highlighting and bringing out.
Yeah.
You guys talked about this. Can you just go in on, can you give me a 15-minute, a 10-minute, can you give me a one-on-one with this? And that's going to be our exclusive Patreon type content. Those are the things that we want to bring to you. So value to come.
That's going to be cool. I'm going to be really excited to make those.
Definitely. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take us out for the episode. That is another a wrap on our high-level overview of soundboards, which technically was a 2-parter.
Trying to give you bumper music, bro.
Yeah, no,
Come on, let's go.
It's just so distracting. But technically it was a 2-parter. Our first episode was mostly on transduction, transducers.
Yeah.
This actually got into the nitty-gritty of the analog and digital soundboards, and we're sure that there are questions that you guys have.
Right.
Use your resources to try to find them, and we're going to get to them eventually. Thanks so much for tuning in to try this at home.
Let's kill a few more a little bit inside of Damien.
This is why I'm so goth.